This episode of Recording Studio Rockstars is brought to you by iZotope, Native Instruments, Atom Audio, and SAE Institute. You're hearing my voice right now mixed through iZotope, Ozone, and Velvet on Atom Audio monitors and headphones. Make sure to get my free mixing course at mixmasterbundle.com, and please check out our awesome sponsors using the links in the show notes. And please like and subscribe to this YouTube channel because it's a great way to help support this show. Now get ready to rock.
The most important part with microphones that most people kind of forget about is the actual capsule, the diaphragm and stuff itself. That is what the sound source comes into contact with first, so it's going to have the biggest effect. So all the circuitry, the tubes, the transformers and all that do make an impact on the sound, but the capsule first and foremost is going to have the most drastic change to the incoming sound source. So
it's like choosing your instrument, right? I mean,
yeah.
The capsule is the thing that creates the sound. Everything else is trying to get the sound from the capsule to your ear.
Absolutely, right.
Welcome to Recording Studio Rockstars. I'm Lij Shaw, and this is the podcast created to help you become a rock star of the recording studio. At iZotope, mixing and mastering just got even smarter. Velvet gives you silky vocals with sibilant slurn de-essing, dynamic tone shaping, and D-click, all in one plugin. And Ozone 11 now includes clarity, upward compression, and AI-powered stem focus to help you master like a pro. Use code ROCK10 for 10% off Ozone or any of iZotope's incredible plugins at iZotope.com. Howdy Rockstars, it's your host Lij Shaw, and welcome back to Recording Studio Rockstars, bringing you into the studio to learn from recording professionals so that you can make your best record ever and be a rock star of the studio yourself. My guest today is Mitch Rose, a recording and mixing engineer from Newcastle, Australia. Mitch is passionate about all things DIY, building his own mics, preamps, EQs, compressors, and even studio furniture and acoustic treatment for home studio spaces. He's been teaching music and audio production for over a decade at colleges across Australia, covering everything from recording and live sound to composing in Ableton. Mitch is also a multi-instrumentalist who plays drums, guitar, bass, and all kinds of percussion, especially the Cajon, the coolest of all drums, right? These days, he spends most of his time recording and mixing other artists from his DIY home studio and shares what he learns online. He runs a popular YouTube channel called the DIY Recording Studio, where he teaches other producers and engineers how to start their own DIY studio journey with hands-on build tutorials for companies like Mic Parts, DIY-RE, Cappy, and Sound Sculptor. Mitch recently flew to the U.S. for NAMM 2025 to work with Z&H Designs and connect with artists, producers, and creators from around the world, where actually I got to shoot a couple of fun videos with Mitch at the booth. So that was really cool to see you there and also to discover Z&H audio. Big shout out and a thank you to Nick at Panorama Mastering, another fantastic YouTube channel, for making our introduction. Please welcome Mitch Rose to Recording Studio Rockstars. Mitch, my man, are you ready to rock, dude?
Absolutely, man. Always ready to rock. Thanks for having me.
It's awesome to have you here, dude.
Yeah, dude, it's so cool. It's actually like a bit of a privilege, I feel, for me to be on this channel, on this podcast with you. Something, I don't know if I mentioned it to you when I met you over in LA, but I was a teacher for a long time and I used to travel from Sydney. Everyone in America should know the city of Sydney. And I'd be traveling actually quite a distance to where I was working as a teacher, where I live now in Newcastle. And I would listen to your podcast in this long, like 2.5 hour drive. I'd be listening to your podcast every day.
Oh man, what a treat, dude. Thank you.
Yeah, no, and like you've developed such a body of resource and a body of work that has so much valuable information for other aspiring engineers, but also like working engineers. It's just an amazing asset to have, I think, like all this valuable information of producers and engineers contributing their information and their bodies of work themselves and stuff. And it's just, I learned so much from listening to this podcast. So to be on it, like, dude, it's like a career highlight for me. So thank you.
You're welcome, man. Well, thank you for joining us. I mean, I learned so much from doing this podcast because I've been lucky to have so many incredibly smart people like yourself come on and tell us all this great stuff about the studio. You know, I've learned, I think when I started this, I thought I was going to be sharing what knowledge I had. And then I quickly learned, I was like, whoa, I've learned so much since I started this just by having all these conversations. So it's great to have you here, dude. And it was cool to see you at NAMM too, and just get to hang out at the Z&H booth and shoot a video. And then I think, where did we go? We walked over to the Roswell Pro Audio booth maybe to meet Matt McGlynn and kind of introduce you over there and stuff, and or maybe you already knew Matt. I can't remember, but
I'd done some stuff for Matt before, doing some instructional build videos and that. Yeah, but it was good to meet him finally in person. So
right, of course, because you were probably building mic parts, kits and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. So how I got my start in DIY was actually through mic parts. I'd gone back to study studio audio production. I was a live engineer for a really long time, and I took the chance to go back and study at uni and do a degree in audio production, but a focus on studio production. And what happened was there was a project, an assignment where we had to build a microphone, and I'd had a bit of soldering experience, but nothing crazy, just soldering cables and things like that. And we had to build like a really basic microphone, like something with really cheap parts from your local like electronics store, something like a Radio Shack over in the States, right? Like just dodgy little parts and make something that works as a microphone. And I was like, I could do something a bit better than that. And I started researching, and I came across Matt's company, Mic Parts. And I looked through what DIY like clone like kind of mics he had, and he had a C414 copy, and it was a mic that I wanted to have in my own studio space and stuff. And so I built that, and that was once I built that first microphone, and we like heard how good it sounded. That was it. I was addicted to DIY. And I was just all in. So it was like, that was the beginning of me going through the whole process of building studio equipment and microphones and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So I actually minored in electrical engineering when I was in college at Middle Tennessee State University, MTSU.
Yeah.
And I remember when they started introducing us to circuit design and just all that, and thinking about audio going through electronics. And it just blew my mind. I loved it so much. I really wish I had kept it up. I did sort of a project. I built a guitar pedal as my final exam project. In fact, I didn't get to walk and receive my diploma because I hadn't turned in my pedal yet. The guitar pedal. So I almost didn't get my degree because that was the thing that was holding me up. But I finally finished it and turned it in later. But I didn't really keep it up. I sort of went into the internship and learned how to do the wiring, but I sort of always regret not keeping up with the DIY actual building stuff for the studio. So that's very cool. So did you ever see one of those XLR mics, which is like the entire microphone and is just in I think the female body of an XLR jack or something like that?
I haven't seen that before. No, that's
it was something
I understand
like
how
that.
you do it. Yeah.
I don't know. It was a very tiny mic in there, right?
Yeah.
Well, so tell us about some of this. So you said you built the C4 mic or the 414, was it?
On Mic Parts, they have a bunch of different typical like popular microphone like clones. Matt doesn't like to use the term clones. He says like they're inspired by, because there might be differences in the circuit, but. I've built a 414 clone. On that website, they have things that are like Neumann U87 sort of style clones. The microphone I'm on now actually is a Mic Parts microphone. This is the T67 that they came out with more recently, which I did some stuff on my channel. And the T67 is like obviously like a U67 inspired microphone. So it's got a K.
So it's got tubes in it and everything.
No tubes. So this is the thing. So you're going to have a lot of people, obviously, out there. As soon as they hear no tube, they're like, "Well, it's not a real U67" and all that kind of stuff. And obviously, to a point, they're right. But what is a tube and what does it do in the circuit is probably the more important question. And if we're talking about tubes in microphones, we're talking about probably saturation, right? Harmonics and all those kind of things. So you can achieve those.
Noise.
Yeah, exactly. And more noise.
Maybe.
Absolutely. More noise, more power. There are downsides to tubes, right? Like you've studied electrical engineering, so you know, like nothing comes for free in physics. There's always a sacrifice for whatever you're trying to do. So, the inherent issue with tubes, especially microphones, is noise. So they've gone tubeless, but it's transformer coupled, and they get the saturation from voicing the circuit the right way to get it, a bit more saturated, like a T6, like a original U67. And then it's got to have the right capsule. The most important part with microphones that most people kind of forget about is the actual capsule, the diaphragm and stuff itself. That is what the sound source comes into contact with first. So it's going to have the biggest effect. So all the circuitry, the tubes, the transformers and all that do make an impact on the sound. But the capsule first and foremost is going to have the most drastic change to the incoming sound source. So
it's like choosing your instrument, right? I mean, it's like the capsule is the thing that creates the sound. Everything else is trying to get the sound from the capsule to your ear.
Absolutely, right? So I think they really nailed that. I've done some shootouts with real U67s that'll be coming out on my channel later on, and it's close, man. Like, and like, how close is close enough, as well. And then on top of that,
and also, who cares? It's like you just want a mic that sounds great, really.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, is it a microphone that you're going to use on everything, and does it sound awesome? And so this one has become like a workhorse for me. It obviously does all the vocal work in the studio. It's amazing on acoustic guitar. It's my drum room mic when I'm recording drums. It's just very versatile. Very, very cool mic. And like all of those microphones, the DIY ones, are pretty affordable, really. And, like the thing is they hold up to more expensive microphones. So if anyone's ever looking to get into DIY, obviously there's a lot of appeal in different areas. Like, number one, you learn a new skill, and you learn maybe how to repair gear as well, like if anything of your own breaks. But the other one, like the main one, is the cost. So if you're building your own equipment, you're saving money on the overall price, because you're doing all the labor yourself, And
there's more to it. There's more to that too. That just occurs to me. The analogy just occurs to me because this morning, because I'm getting ready to, drive this weekend and then like I was like, by the time I get back, the lawn's going to be crazy. I went out and did my lawn early this morning, mowing it and stuff. And one of the reasons, a lot of times people say to me, why don't you just pay somebody to do your lawn or something, And I'm like, well, I really like, I'm easily allergic to all the grass and all that kind of stuff. But I really like doing it because it's the only time I get out there and get familiar with my yard and see the outside of my house and see if something's breaking or falling down. Like I would never see that a gutter was, coming apart if I didn't get out there and do stuff around the house. And it reminds me, when you're talking about building these microphones, that, that's one of the takeaways. When you build the gear, you know what went into it and you actually know how it works. You might not know exactly how it works, but you know what kind of components are. And if something breaks, like you're probably never terrified to just like, oh, well, why don't I just take that part out and replace it with a new one and see if that fixes it,
Yeah, absolutely. Like the first time I ever started doing repairs or mods, like later on, I'd started to do repairs and mods on equipment and stuff. And like the first time you remove a part from a circuit board, it is terrifying. Right. Because it's like, but it's one of those things where you quickly realize if you make a mistake, you can fix those mistakes on circuits as well. It's not, it's not the craziest thing to do once you get out of it.
And were you modding something that you built or something that somebody else built?
I've done some mods on pedals and stuff like that. Like guitar pedals are a really good entryway into DIY. And then I've started modding some bits and pieces. I've done some mods on some microphones. Once again, not to talk Matt up too much, he has this great
we can talk Matt up. Matt's all right. Matt's all right. So Rockstars, we're talking about Matt McGlynn at Roswell Pro Audio. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And mic parts.
And mic parts. He also, I should mention this, he has an amazing other website, recordinghacks.com.
Oh, right.
Are you familiar with
Yeah,
that?
I haven't spent much time over there, but tell us about it.
So I used to teach, as you mentioned in the intro, and as a teacher, you're always looking for really valuable resources. And Matt has this excellent website called recordinghacks.com, and it has this huge microphone database, and it has all the info and history of those microphones, and then the frequency responses of those microphones. And it has this cool interface where you can actually pull up a microphone and its frequency response, and then you can compare the frequency response in an overlay of other microphones. So for instance, like, I don't know, in Australia, there's always been this funny myth that the 57 and the SM58 are the same microphone, and you just take the head basket off and then it's a 57. And that's completely untrue.
Right. I think I've heard that.
Yeah. It's just...
Sorry, I'm fixing something at the same time as I'm listening here. Go ahead.
You're all right. Anyway, and you can use this website to like immediately look at the different frequency responses of microphones and have that conversation. So I would use it as an awesome resource with my students all the time, to show them frequency response of microphones and why a 57 sounds the way it does, and why a Neumann U87 is so coveted, because like all the Neumann microphones are just so ruler flat through the mid-range of their frequency response and stuff like that.
And so did you say that there are audio examples there too?
No audio examples.
Or is it more like the church? So let me throw something. Let me throw out a suggestion. Audio Test Kitchen.
Oh,
Do you know about it?
Yes.
So people could, Rockstars, you could do recording hacks, see all the specs on something. Then if you were curious about how two things sounded, you probably could go to Test Kitchen and go listen to the two mics, with the same sound in it and stuff like that, which would be a fun experiment.
Yeah. I actually came across that from, I think you interviewed the guys from there, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Alex Oana, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, look, there's so many great resources out there for that kind of stuff. And and anyway, getting back to the mods. So Matt has a kit where you can take a really inexpensive microphone, a particular one from a company called Studio Projects, the C1, and it just coincidentally has a great sounding capsule, and it's just a very cheap, like U87 kind of clone microphone thing, but the circuit design is a bit, could be better. So Matt designed a mod circuit, and so you can take apart that and change some parts and make this microphone sound much more like a U87. And that microphone, I've got a pair of them now. They're actually hanging up over the back of me on my overheads. They're on overhead duties for a session I just did.
Cool.
And those microphones cost, maybe you can usually pick them up. They're only, I think you pick them up used for about $200, and that's Australian. So that's like $100, $150 US. So they're nice. Dirt cheap. And then you get this circuit from Matt's mic parts company, and then that's only like maybe $50 or something, and then it makes that microphone sound so similar to a U87. And I've done shootouts with that.
Wow.
And it's so close. The only difference is the rear axis rejection, because there's something else going on with the Neumann capsules there.
Right.
But as far as sonic characteristic, it's on point. It's almost one for one. It sounds incredibly similar to a U87 for like $300,
That's super cool. Dreaming of a career in audio or the entertainment business? SAE Institute Nashville, in the heart of Music Row, offers hands-on programs where you'll learn on professional-grade gear with industry pros, learning through real projects, not just lectures. Explore studio production, live sound, audio for film, and a whole lot more. Or take the entertainment business program to learn about contracts, promotion, and more. With diploma, associate, and bachelor's programs, there's a path for you. Book a tour today at nashville.sae.edu or call 615-244-5848. And I think some of the rejection stuff, correct me if I'm wrong, but some of the rejection stuff is going to be electronic in the circuitry, but some of it is also just the physical shape of microphones and the capsules. For example, an SM57, I can't remember if the slots in the 57 are part of the cardioid pickup.
Yeah. So when you have a microphone, there's this is a different microphone, but there'll be like grills, and as the sound waves hit the front of the capsule, as sound waves come in the back of the capsule through those air slots, you get a phase cancellation in the rear. So that's what gives you that cardioid pattern. Yeah.
That's cool. And like the RE20, for example, the long, with all those slots in it, I think that has to do with making it very directional. If you just look at a shotgun mic, for example, those ones are easy to see. All the slots in it basically just can't cancel frequencies out or something so that it becomes ultra directional. Have you done any recording with a shotgun mic, or have you ever built one?
I haven't built one. There's no kits for those out there or anything like that. I've used them, but only for kind of field recording kind of stuff. There's a famous story actually of the band The Foo Fighters. If everyone knows the song My Hero, you know, that huge drum intro that Dave Grohl does on the drums in that song. And apparently what they did, they went out, they recorded it in the studio, and they just weren't getting the drums loud enough. I heard this on an interview somewhere anyway, and then they actually used a shotgun mic in a car park, like a big, shedded car park, or like enclosed car park area in that studio. And they pointed a shotgun mic at the drum kit from ages away, and Dave Grohl just bashed the intro away to that song, and it's actually two drum kits basically overdubbed. So it's an overdub drum kit, an extra layer, and that's why you get these huge flammy kind of drums on the toms and stuff. But yeah, that's what they used the shotgun mic for, and they just shot it from way further back, and they just got this huge drum sound. And so I've always wanted to try that just because of that. Like it'd be so cool, but I don't have Dave Grohl or a huge car park.
Well, I'd love to try shotguns too. I haven't really had a chance to use them, but things I've heard about shotguns is they can be, in fact, I think it was David Blackmer from DBX who told me years ago when I spoke to him that a shotgun might be a great choice for some because it's a very flat response. I think it's literally like flat sonically is my guess, in the same way that it's that a telephoto lens can be a good portrait photographic lens because it sort of flattens things. But also frequency wise. And it occurs to me that with my studio, I've got this loft where I put room mics up to look down at the, to get my room sound. And how cool it would be to take a shotgun mic and just have it go over the top and point right down at the drum set. See what that sounds like sometime.
That sounds awesome. Isn't that the cool thing about having like a studio space, right? Like that you can try these things out. I think one of the most underrated things is when you're recording, especially drums. Drums are such a complicated instrument to capture the sound of. But you can try so much, and there's so much, like if you have a home studio space or any space, but if you're like, there's so many people that are doing the home studio thing now. And what you don't realize is that you actually have access to so many things like room reverbs. Like you can turn your house into chamber reverbs. I'm about to do a revisit this in a video. I had a session the other day where I was doing drums. It was a late session, and because my studio here is actually in my house, right next to this wall is my family are having breakfast right now because it's morning here in Australia.
Right on.
Yeah. And
that's why you're so chipper.
I've just had my morning coffee and my toast, so I'm ready to go. Anyway, So I'm doing this session, and obviously it's like 7:00 at night. My kids are getting ready for bed, so they're out there, and I can't have my doors to the studio open like I normally would. Normally I would have that door cracked open during the day and set room mics out in my dining room and stuff to get that big room sound. And like, there's nothing better than a room mic, I feel, in a drum recording. That's become so much part of the drum sound, is a room mic. And the right room mic and the right kind of distancing and stuff just becomes that real, like close mics are not the sound of drums, like you need to bring that all back together with room mics, I feel. And so that's part of the sound of my drum sound that I record. And anyway, I couldn't do that for this session. So the next best thing to get that kind of energy is just the next day I set up a massive speaker, big PA speaker, just facing the doors just behind me, put them a bit open again like I normally would, put my microphone out in the dining room the way I normally would, and just sent the drums through that speaker and basically reamped, you know what I mean? And did it that way. And I got the same big room, bombastic energy. And while it's not the same as having a drummer play and it spill out into the room in real time, the benefit can be when you reamp and redo do a room mic that way, is that you can actually control the amount of cymbals because it's all going through a send. You can put as much kick or snare and maybe less cymbals, because cymbals are always a pain in the butt. So you can control the type of energy that's spilling out into that room. And like, anyone that's worked in a big studio should know, like, that's how a chamber reverb works. That's what a chamber reverb is. The original ones, like, they were real analog chambers.
What speaker did you end up using? Did you just is yours set up where your monitors became the speakers and you just turned them up, or do you have some other speaker like a PA speaker that works for this kind of thing?
A PA loudspeaker, just a powered PA speaker. I've tried using monitors for it before, and they just don't have enough power. And I also don't want to just risk destroying my monitors.
Right. Plus, you're in record feedback loop.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's much easier to go out of a separate output on your interface. And anyone that's listening to this and wanting to do that at home, you need an interface that has separate line outputs. You can't do this out of the stereo outs, because as you were just saying, Lidge, you will get feedback.
Right. Well, you could. You just wouldn't be able to hear what you're doing. You would have to send it to speakers, record it on the inputs 1 and 2, and just have everything muted, and you're just watching the red thing go across your screen. Then when it's done, you sort of put it back together and see what it sounds like. But feedback. You probably will end up getting feedback accidentally. Somewhere you'll get tired and you'll press the wrong button and blow something up.
Yeah, it's definitely better having extra outputs, that's for sure. So that's one way to do it. And it's just, there's so many ways to sort of do this job, and if you get creative and have that kind of like DIY mentality, like, how can I rig this together to do this thing? You can come up with some awesome sounds.
All right, so let's keep breaking that down, because it's a cool concept, but it's also really fun when we start thinking about how we're actually going to do it. So a PA speaker could be like one of those little simple portable PA things. I suppose it could just be another speaker that just simply has a jack in the back, and you can run it on a send. Sometimes the powered speakers, I have some little KRKs and things like that.
Yep.
As long as it'll get, how loud do you feel like you needed to get for it to really be effective as playing the drums into the room?
Because I have like PA speakers and stuff like that available to me, I'm going to use a PA speaker that can be really loud and really bombastic, as if I want to get that big loud drum energy, so I'm going to do that. But if you look at chambers like that are used in chamber reverbs at all the world's famous studios, they are often, funny enough, it's KRKs that seem to be in there a lot of the time. Yeah. If you look at photos at like Abbey Road and stuff like that, where they show their chambers, there'll be like just usually some kind of hi-fi speaker will do, because you're just trying to get enough energy in a room. If like, you can actually just put the speaker closer to the microphone and balance it that way. It's all just balance, trying to get the direct versus the reverberation of the room that you're setting this up in. So if you're getting too much direct from the speaker going straight into the microphone, your speaker's too close to that microphone, I guess. So it's just how roomy do you want it to sound and how much less direct sound do you want going into it. But you could absolutely use any kind of hi-fi speaker. If you've got like a home stereo, it doesn't have to be like really high quality speakers to do the chamber reverb thing at all. Because it's really just about pushing that energy out into the room and exciting the room to get the reverb. Yeah. And like you'll have people obviously say, well, why not just use a room reverb, like a digital reverb? And my response to that would be that it just sounds different. It definitely has a different sound. Like I love plugins, like because I do DIY stuff and I build analog gear and all this kind of stuff. You always are going to have people kind of push back against that and be like, well, we have plugins. Why wouldn't I just use a plugin? And, you know, like my answer is always just go try it then. Like you try it and you tell me kind of thing. Like, because I try to document these things to show people the difference and like, is there a difference between certain preamps or is there a difference between a plugin and the real hardware? Stuff like that is really important to understand. And there is a difference, but it's not about is one better than the other. I like to take the approach of all of the gear, whether it be preamps, EQs, compressors, hardware, software, they're just tools. And we're just using these tools to get a job done at the end of the day. And if you understand your tools like in a really like deep way, if you understand how the hardware works and you understand maybe some of the limitations of the software counterparts to that, you can better do your job because you understand the tools you're using. So like something like doing a chamber reverb, there are benefits to that because as I said, like you can control what you're doing, but there's a certain energy we get when we send real air out of a speaker and then it's captured again by a microphone. There's something that happens in all that isn't fully captured still in digital. Like if you try to quantify the amount of information just in electrons, right? Like this is getting ultra nerdy. Are we allowed to get ultra nerdy on this?
Oh yeah, absolutely, man.
Like if you're trying to capture just what happens to electrons through a microphone circuit or a preamp, we're talking about billions, trillions, quadrillions of electrons per second flowing through a circuit. How can a computer possibly capture what's happening there? You know, like there's things that happen between a transformer, like magnetic flux, like when you have electricity pass through a transformer or in an opto circuit, right? Like we're literally putting in an opto compressor, works by light hitting a photosensitive resistor and clamping it. How do you, a computer cannot do that, right? Especially like if you designed a plugin to do that, could you only use one on a mix because of the computational power it would take to capture that, you know? So there obviously has to be sacrifices with digital and digital plugins. And that's not to say they're bad or anything like that. Like there are amazing plugins out there. It's just to understand that there are certain limitations to them. And if we understand those limitations and their benefits, then we can use them better, I think. And
and also, you know, I think it's fair to say like, I think it's fair to just ask who cares? You know, it's fair to say like, it's like, why bother putting too much energy into the comparison of the digital versus analog thing in that respect. So it's great that plugins can go measure pieces of gear. I mean, we made a plugin out of my MCI console, you know, and then now I've got that and it's really fun to use. So it's great to have that. Is it the exact same thing as having the MCI console in your studio? No, of course not. You know, they're just different things. Yeah. One is a really awesome snapshot of the other or something. But you know, to me the follow-up to that question is thinking about it like, you know, you're trying to be a painter when you're making a recording or you're making music, you're trying to capture something artistically. And so, you know, like Mitch, did you tell me, Mitch, which one is better, yellow, red, or blue? Which is a better color, right? You know?
Absolutely. And like we get caught up in like trying to capture good, all the time. And you know what's boring? Things that sound good. Good's point. Boring, man. Perfect is boring. Yeah, that thing that like if it sounds good, it is good, right? Like if you're coming up with cool sounds, that's all that matters. And like you just mentioned like the MCI plugin, which is such a great example, right? You guys, when you designed that, looked at the shortcomings of the original hardware design and then made improvements on it with the plugin. Right. And that's the kind of thing I love about plugins. Like, it's one thing to like try and clone like an 1176 and all these things that are popular to do right now. But what's awesome about digital and about software is we can make a tool that is actually has benefits over the original. And I think that's something that's forgotten about in plugin design sometimes. They get caught up in recreating the original thing and forget about some of the inherent disadvantages of the hardware that they could actually make better improvements on in software. And that's where software and plugins have all of the benefits, that you can redesign things easily and make things like side chains, like high pass filter side chains for compressors. Like, every compressor should have one, right? Like it's such a beneficial thing to a mix, and you can do that easily in a plugin. It's much harder to do in the hardware, stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah. Although I'm embarrassed to say I don't use the sidechain filter all that much. I probably need to check it out more. I do it sometimes, like on the 2 mix, I'll do it where I'm like, I wonder what the low end of this mix will sound like if I, mess with this a little bit more.
That's definitely like on buses and stuff, it becomes handy. But I don't overthink that either. Like, I've got hardware compressors that don't have side chains, and people are like, oh, how can you use that? And I'm like, easy, like this. just do
grab the knobs and go. Yeah. Well, let's talk. I want to ask you about cool places that you have tried. I mean, assuming you've had a chance to try a lot of this, the reamping and then the miking up in your space. A couple of questions, a couple of thoughts. One is, are there some fun spaces that you want to throw out there as suggestions for people to like, think outside the box on where to put these mics and try this stuff? And two is, I think a reminder to us is the plugins are wonderful. They're fabulous. I love them, just like we all do. Just like all of you, I love plugins. I'm like, ooh, I'm going to try that new one, and I'll get it.
Totally.
And sure enough, I have too many, and then like the ones that will really get me to the finish line is a handful of good choices, and that kind of stuff. But the thing for us to remember, I think, is when it comes to microphones, there is a massive, like a universe of possible sounds we can create with that microphone.
Yep.
The quietest sounds can be turned into sounds for a record. The loudest sounds can be captured for a record. I think we can paint much more, imagery that way than we can with these digital tools. But of course, the vice versa is then you've always got sounds that can only be created in digital that you can't create in the analog world. And that's where the really interesting mashups come from. Yeah. But like when we do what you were talking about with the speaker and the mic in our space, now all of a sudden we're creating sounds that are unique and everybody else can't create that same
Absolutely.
sound. So you start to put a signature on your studio that could be really interesting to people too, Whereas when you just do the straight plugin, anybody else can go create the same sound. It won't be identical to yours because, we all have our own individual personality to mix into it too. But, what do you think about cool places to put a mic and try that reamping in a home or a house? I mean, the bathroom has been famously a good spot too, right?
Obviously a bathroom or a laundry or some kind of tiled space.
How about in the laundry? How about in the dryer?
Yeah. Hey, never say never, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, It could be, you could come up with something unique and awesome. It might be super cool. Just don't turn it on.
From synths to strings to studio guitars, Complete 15 has it all. Native Instruments' flagship bundle gives you everything you need to create pro music in any genre, with cutting-edge instruments like Contact 8, Massive X, battery, guitar rig, and session guitarist for lifelike electric and acoustic guitar parts. Use our code ROCK10 for 10% off at nativeinstruments.com or get started with Complete Start totally free. And now here's a tip for you. Here's a tip too, Rockstars. This is what I call in my studio. When I have an intern or somebody who's helping me get a sound on something, I call it the human mic stand. Because it takes too long. It's way too slow to go adjust a microphone stand, set up a mic in the position, screw it all together, plug it in, do all that stuff. So it's like, hey, when you're trying to like swap out microphones quickly, just have somebody plug it in, and then just say into the mic, you're rolling in the other room, just say, this is this mic and I'm putting it right here, and then just hold it for a second, on an instrument or whatever. But you could do that for the reamp too. You could walk around. You could, like if you're doing this by yourself, you could probably do the speaker, hold the mic in your hand, and just verbally say, or have your iPhone going at the same time so you got a video of yourself. Like, here's the mic by the kitchen chair.
Yeah.
And you just have the drums on loop and just try the different spots and see how they play back.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You could definitely do a lot of cool things like that. There's lots of different ways to approach it. And like, obviously, like the bathroom one is one that's been made famous because of studios like Motown and stuff doing that back in the day.
They used to have their chamber was the attic above the house.
Yeah, I heard that too.
And
I
think they famously would bounce a basketball at the same time as the snare in the attic.
Yeah, wow.
And it would give you like
cool.
this boing into the room mic kind of thing.
That's funny because that's the frequency I hate in kick and snare drums. So most of the time,
well,
I need more
very different style of music too. Probably.
Yeah. Well, that's true, right? Like it's a different style, different genre, different thing back in the day.
They're trying to blast through all that analog tubes and tape.
Totally.
Make it out of an AM speaker.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? Yeah, like that you're trying to get completely different frequencies now. So like one of the cool reverb chambers I experimented with was years ago. I actually used to live back in Sydney. My partner, she's also a teacher, and we lived in this dormitory. We lived in a high school, boarding school dormitory, and they didn't have their student numbers were shrinking. So we actually ended up with a whole school dorm to ourselves, 2 stories of a dormitory to ourselves. It was wild. And I had these huge stairwells I could play around with. And I've got a video on my YouTube channel where I tried different setups for chamber reverbs to try and get that kind of, that everyone wants to try and get that John Bonham drum sound, that huge, bombastic, like when the levee breaks drum sound. And I had someone request that sound and I'm like, man, I got you. I know how to get that. Let's go. So we recorded drums and then I reamped, did the whole chamber reverb thing and tried a couple of different microphones and stuff in the setup to get different sounds. Tried it with live drum spill and then tried it with speakers spill, a little reamping. And that was kind of my first time ever trying it. And I was so shocked at how good it sounds. Like it just sounds so good. And I actually do prefer the sound of a speaker sometimes doing that job, like going into another microphone as a chamber kind of setup. But like a stairwell is an excellent one because you can change the distance and the amount of reverb time like a real chamber in a big studio kind of setup. But just room, if you've got a big enough space, like a dining room area or a living room area that's like, not too carpeted or something like that, that's bright and big enough, like wooden floors or tiled floors or something like that, where it's got enough reflections going on, that can be all you need. It doesn't have to be something crazy. It's like we all have space. Obviously, if you're in a home studio setup, you're going to have to do it when no one's around. And maybe that's the challenge. But we all have
including
time.
The neighbors if you're in an apartment.
Yeah. Look, unfortunately for people in apartments, you might have a bit
plugins
more
are great. If you live in an apartment, use plugins.
Yeah, totally. But like if you've got a space at home where you can do this kind of thing, or a friend's house, or somewhere where you can go to do it, it's pretty cool. So it's an awesome one for sure. Yeah.
So it reminds me of a really cool video I remember seeing in early YouTube days. I think it was an artist that played their song. I think they were just playing acoustic and singing, and they would video with the iPhone. So they're making a YouTube video this way, and they would just go to a place and perform the song, banging out acoustic and singing in a different space with the iPhone at similar distance, so that like all the iPhone shots kind of matched up in terms of where you were in the image and the background size and the frame size. And I think the mic was just the iPhone mic, but each space had a different reverberation. So there would be a dry one, there would be like a super reverbed out one. And they would do, they might be in a living room for one shot, and then be under an overpass, highway bridge or somewhere. Maybe there's when there's no traffic, I don't know. But, with huge reverb. And then they cut between the different sections of the song so that each section, like when the chorus dropped, it was super verbed out and it just sounded perfect for that one section.
That's so clever. That's so
You know
clever.
what I mean? And they must have had they must have been playing along with the click track in their headphone or something, just like an earbud, so that it was always in tempo. And that kind of blew my mind. And then it's like, oh, okay, how could we do that? Think like that, even with what you're talking about, like reamping, reamping in different spaces of the house and just drop in certain verbs for certain sections.
Totally. And like you can obviously do that, like just once you commit that, like you track that reverb in, you can just chop it up or automate the volumes. You can do it however you want, because we're, I think part of what people forget about when we mix, we're actually helping the arrangement, and sometimes we're adding things to the arrangement. So, it's that thing where you're adding those parts where the arrangement needs those things. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Right on, man. Well, we went deep on that topic. So where should we go next?
Do you want to talk about other DIY sort of things like
man,
like preamps and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think you had something really cool for us. A little surprise. Yeah. You got a second camera ready for us, right?
Sure do.
This is the first, Rockstars. This is high-tech guestistry. That's what I call it.
So,
oh, wow. Look at that, man.
Over here, we have a bunch of 500 series stuff. And on my channel, I show how to build a bunch of these different products. We've got my vocal chain, first up. I'll explain that one. That's this one here, this Neve preamp. That's a DIY 1073 clone. They're super popular at the moment. They keep selling out. They're just a very, very good clone of a Neve 1073. There's quite a few of those. And that's probably my favorite one. So that's the one that lives on vocals most of the time.
Does it do that kind of classic, almost like fuzzy, squishy, saturated Neve distortion kind of thing when you push it?
So DIY are a company I've done a bit of work for as well, like with mic parts. So I've got their opto compressors here as well. They're the first opto compressors I ever built. They're excellent. They do a thing I'll talk about in a minute. But the Neve 1073 they did, I'll just cut back to my normal camera. The Neve 1073 they did is really cool because they did this thing where they found the distortion characteristic mostly comes from a certain transistor in the circuit, not there's saturation and stuff that happen from those famous input and output transformers, the Carnhill ones that everyone knows about. And if you don't know about that, the Neve has these input and output transformers, the 1073, that are part of the very important characteristic of that preamp. And there's a certain, so people mistakenly think that all the saturation, all the distortion comes from those transformers, when in actual fact, a big important part is this certain part of the power transistor stage and stuff like that. And Peterson Goodwin from DIY is a very clever dude who analyzed that circuit in and out and came up with this design. And all power to him. Like he's selling so many of those because they're just excellent. And they're good when you can't get a hold of them. So
right. And that's even for a DIY kit?
Yeah. So you could, all of these companies that do DIY kits, you should know as well, like Mic Parts, DIY, all these companies, they also will build them for you and you can pay extra to have them built by the company and they still work out generally more affordable than the real counterpart, like a real Neve 1073, stuff like that. But you can pick up one of those. The DIY RE preamp, it is only about $400 US. So compared to a Neve 1073, you're talking about like, a third of the price.
Can you point at each one we're talking about so we really know which one we're looking at?
Yeah. So, and I'll just turn my mic around so you can hear me.
There you go.
So that's the DIY RE 1070 73p just there. Excellent 73 clone. It looks.
And what are some of the knobs and switches you got on there? What does it do
on the 73p? All the typical ones, right? So you got your input gain and your trim, which is standard on a 1073. You got your phase, your low Z. I'll talk about that in a second because there's something about that on an Neve that a lot of people miss. Your 48 volt phantom power and then line. So for your line, like to change it from mic to line, and then very importantly, your DI input on the 73.
Right on.
So the 73, 1073, they all have if you look at any Neve, it has a high impedance and a low impedance. And this isn't for mic to instrument level thing. It usually shows 300 ohms and 1200 ohms, right? As an impedance. And what is often missed about that preamp is that is like this clever part of the circuit that Rupert Neve designed, where if you're using a low impedance mic, back in the day when we used mics and preamps, you were supposed to actually impedance match them to get the most out of the microphone.
Right.
And it's
Isn't Abbey Road famous for that?
Yeah. They're like all the engineers back in those days, when they were wearing lab coats and stuff still, they were engineers by every sense of the word. They knew scientifically that to optimize the quality of the microphone and to make it work properly, it was best to match the impedance with the preamp. So you would have preamps that would match the impedances. And so Rupert Neve was like, well, we're getting so many different microphones. Now we need to match. We need to be able to change that. That needs to be something we select. If we're using a ribbon, we need the low impedance, or a dynamic microphone, we need the low impedance. And if we use a tube or a condenser, we're going to need the high impedance. And once again, like, you can do that and it will net you certain results. But really what it is a tone switch. It changes the tonal characteristic of a Neve 1073. So, that famous thing that people say, oh, all you need is a 57, right? Everyone goes, all you need is a SM57 for your first
I thought
microphone.
It was love.
Also true.
Sorry. I'm always putting in the dumb jokes. And then the thing I remember from Abbey Road is that they actually designed it so that, this I read in the Recording the Beatles book, or the Abbey Road book that came out years ago. But it was that all the gear was like 600 ohms in and out. Yeah. So like everything in the signal chain was impedance matched.
Yeah.
Which I've never heard that. I've never recorded that way and heard what that sounds like, but it'd be fascinating to hear it.
It would be interesting. So, like, do you have any like 1073 style preamps?
I used to have a 1079, a Neve 1079 in the studio, and I sold it years ago. But
oh wow.
To your point, they are rather expensive now. So I think that the DIY kit's going to be a far more affordable option than getting a vintage 1073 on the market. That's for sure.
Totally. So that switch, like if you switch it down to the 300 ohms on a 57, like I was just talking about, you'll notice the low end increases, and you get like a smoother kind of high frequency response. Like it changes the tonal shift of the microphone in a noticeable way. And it's just this cool thing. Like I don't think about it too much. Like if I'm using a condenser, I'll probably keep it on the high impedance. But yeah, like what I'll notice if I use like this microphone and I switch the impedance. Why don't we just do it now? We'll see if we can hear it. I don't know if we'll hear it over the stream. So that's the impedance change to low impedance. And what generally happens is on a condenser, it'll roll off some of the highs and increase some of the low frequency stuff and the low mids.
Sounds like, I think.
Yeah, the low mids have increased just from that impedance switch. And I'll switch it back. And now we should have maybe some more highs going on. It might be a bit silkier up the top or something like that. It just changes awesome. It just changes the tone. So the way, like with everything we've been talking about, like I just think of it as a different tool. And I wouldn't have known about that had I not built them as a kit, you know what I mean? Because you're like, oh, well, what does it do? Why is it there, you know? And so you play around and you look into it and you go, oh, that's a thing we're supposed to do. And like, it's music, so like you're supposed to do things and then you can break those rules and you can go, all right, I can use the wrong impedance on this microphone because I want it to be a bit darker or something. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's kind of cool.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
iZotope is truly amazing for mixing and mastering your music. Check out the new iZotope Velvet plugin featuring intelligent sibilance learn de-essing that automatically detects harsh frequencies, dynamic tone shaping with lift and tame controls, and transparent declick to clean up mouth noises, pops, and clicks, all in one easy plugin for polished professional vocals. And now Ozone 11 takes your mastering game even further with the new Clarity module for adaptive spectral enhancement, upward compression in the maximizer for increased punch without losing dynamics, and stem focus to process individual elements like vocals or drums with surgical precision. Use the code ROCK10 to get 10% off Velvet, Ozone, or any fantastic plugin at iZotope.com. Howdy, rock stars. We're back now for the jam session, a.k.a. the second half of the show. My guest today, what's a getch? I don't know what a getch is, but my guest today is Mitch Rose, joining us from DIY Recording Studio in Australia, in Sydney, Australia, where they have the big old Opry House. Mitch, you ready to jam, dude?
Yeah, man. I'm in Newcastle, not in Sydney anymore.
Oh, excuse me, in Newcastle, Australia. Why were we talking about Sydney earlier?
Because I used to live there. I used to live in Sydney. But yeah, Newcastle is like about depending on what part of Sydney you're in, because Sydney's a huge city. It's about 2 to 3 hours north. Newcastle is. It's in an area we call the Hunter. So the Hunter region where I live is like a music-rich town. There's lots and lots of bands on the coastal area because we're right on the coast. Lots of bands. It's good. Yeah. The beaches in Australia are unreal. We've got some of the best beaches here. It's pretty good. Wow. And we have beautiful lakes and stuff around here too. There's the Great Lakes where I live, which are like, there's these beautiful bay areas and stuff. And then we have wine country like 30 minutes the other direction away from the coast. So we have some of the best wines there as well. So it's a nice little spot to live.
So the reason I ask about surfing, people aren't going to be used to hearing me talk about surfing, but in April this month, I decided to sort of secretly take the month off, and I snuck off and I went surfing in Costa Rica for a month. Oh man, so cool! I just went surfing every day and then wrote songs on the beach, and I had an unbelievably awesome time, dude. So
that sounds amazing.
I'd love to come down to Australia and do it there. Now I'm sort of like, I didn't even know what I'm doing on a surfboard, but I'm hooked.
Yeah. What kind of board do you ride, Lidge? Do you ride
whatever the hell they had at the surfing school. It was like,
cool.
Day one was the 11-foot floating sidewalk. Yep. And the very last day I was out on a 7'6" and realized that you kind of need better waves if you want to be on a short board.
Yeah. It's a lot more work.
Yeah. Is that something that you do? Do you surf?
Yeah, I used to. I don't really anymore. I used to surf and do another sport, wakeboarding. Are you familiar with wakeboarding, like water skiing?
Yeah, that's behind a boat, right, on the lakes?
Yeah, I did more water skiing as a young kid. Love it. Love it, dude. Like in Australia, part of like the cultural thing you do growing up is going camping, and you camp near like beaches and you bodyboard and surf, and it's a big part of our culture here. Yeah.
That's great. Well, I don't want to take up too much time talking about surfing, but I just wanted to reveal that I've got a lot to say about that trip. So hopefully I'll get a chance to talk more about it.
Well, man, if you want good beaches, you have to come to Australia for sure sometime, man.
I will. All right, I'm going to take you up on that offer. It's a little bit far from here, but I'll figure it out. Another thing that we were talking about briefly, and I want to go back to looking at your rack here in a moment, But
Yeah.
didn't you tell me that you started a podcast recently too? You want to give it a shout out? What are you guys doing?
Cool. So it's me and another Australian producer called Mida Norath, and it's called Audio Boys. We have a group chat that's called Audio Boys. It's all a group of mates. It's not just exclusive to boys, but we call ourselves the Audio Boys. And it's just a chat where we talk about the current production techniques that we're doing. And we try and relate it back to smaller home studios and smaller production sort of facilities. And we have lots of artists writing questions via our Instagram and stuff as well, where they are trying to record themselves and how to better do that. So we talk about everything, like from high-end studio gear that we use all the way down to like, cheap, affordable, accessible gear for beginners and stuff like that.
Nice, man. Nice.
Just nerd out, really. It's really just an excuse for us to nerd out about equipment we're using.
Let's do some more of that. You were showing us your cool rack, and the 1073 sounds amazing. What is the what else have you got in there? It looked like there was maybe kind of a DBX 902 de-esser off to the right of that or something.
Yeah. So that's not a DIY kind of thing. I'll show you that. So that is just there, the 520. I use it when I'm doing stuff like this, like voiceover stuff. I haven't used it in a recording session per se, but I would use like tracking vocals, but I would definitely use it when mixing sometimes. What I find with any type, so for those who aren't familiar with it, what a de-esser really is, it's just a high frequency, like multi-band. It's like a multi-band compressor, right? But just the high frequency section of that. And what I find with any analog gear is just that you can push it a little bit harder than the software versions of that. So, say if you've got a analog compressor of some kind, we've got different types of analog compressors where you can hammer them like 10 dB, 12 dB of gain reduction, and it still sounds good. And I find that when you use plugins, they can struggle when you're pushing them that hard sometimes. So plugins are great sometimes for like lighter duties and lighter lifting and stuff like that, but there's certain bits of hardware where you can really hammer them, and that
right,
de-esser
like some of the compressors too and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but we kind of covered the the plug-in versus gear. We want to look at your gear, man. Show us more gear.
Sorry. So then,
I mean, you're good looking and all, but let's see some gear.
Yeah, Lidge just wants to see my rack.
Yeah, exactly. I want to see your rack, man. I'm really excited about those. Are those the ZNH 560 DIY guys right there?
These right here, ZNH aren't DIY, but what they do is they do really affordable clones of vintage gear. So they were the guys I was working with at NAMM. This is their 560. That's the API graphic EQ clone they do.
What does it do? I mean, we're not really zoomed in with this view too, so you might have to really like.
Let's zoom in a bit, eh?
Yeah. Give us, make it easy for us to see there on the iPhones.
Yeah, for anyone watching on video.
So you got it's a graphic EQ, and you've got a whole bunch of sliders.
Yeah, it's a graphic EQ. The traditional bands are 16 to 31 hertz. It's like one band octaves. So 31, 63, like it doubles as it goes up from 31 hertz. Very musical bands to work with. And that's what API were famous for with that graphic EQ. And they just do a very, very faithful, very excellent sounding recreation. And we're talking about DIY stuff today a bit, but also what you should know is there's a bunch of companies like these guys that make affordable versions of these products. I don't know if anyone listening knows that the API stuff can be very, very expensive. Once again, this company, they're doing these for like $430 and that's like about a quarter of the price, I think, a third to a quarter of the price of the original APIs, which makes them so affordable. And then same again, this is their mastering EQ. This is like a clone of a Sontec EQ, but in 500 series format. So
interesting, right. I think we saw that at NAMM too.
At NAMM, yeah. This is beautiful. So my vocal chain is the, I'll just zoom out. my vocal chain today is the 1073 into the DSR into this EQ. If I turn off that EQ for a second, you should hear it. My voice should go a bit duller, like quite a bit duller.
Right, it went darker, yeah.
Yeah. So the beauty of this EQ is you can really like smash the high frequencies up. That's about 12 dB of boost there on those EQs.
At what frequency?
At about 17 kilohertz. So
so that's one of those classic. Yeah, that's classic airband kind of techniques. Which are very surprising to discover that that's something you can get away with and do. Because like if you crank 12 dB in any other, more in the audible bands, you like really notice it. It can be a great move for certain things, but it can also be perceived as really extreme and overbearing or too much in a lot of cases. But with the airband stuff, you can get away with that.
Yeah. So it all depends on the circuit. So these are like a special design where the EQ can be very transparent, as opposed to something like up top where I've built a couple of other different clones.
Let me ask you something about that Soundtech one.
Oh, yeah.
The ZNH. Is the have you also found that cranking up the airband can be really beautiful on an acoustic guitar? Like
oh my God, yeah. This is great on anything where you need that kind of airiness.
Or crisp pop, right?
Yeah. I use it on mixed bus duties, vocal tracking, cymbals and stuff when you need that like thinner, crisper kind of sound. Funny enough, on acoustic guitar, the 560 is my favorite guitar EQ by far. Scooping the mids on this thing gives you instant record acoustic guitar sounds. And
that's the graphic again.
The graphic EQ, These two EQs are just so I find that this is like your color and your heavy strokes. You know, the 560s are like your heavy strokes and your real colorful sort of things, and then this is more your subtle kind of stuff. They're a really great pairing of EQs. Actually, I use them on everything.
And those 560s can sound really beautiful on kicks and snares. I mean, Craig Alvin was hipping me to that using the plugin version, the API plugin. There was in St. Louis at Sawhorse Studios, we were looking at drum chains, and he showed me the probably one of the best kick and snare sounds I've ever heard, which was it was a Shadow Hills into a 560. Man. It was just such a great combo. So it's what's fascinating to me when you look at this stuff, Rockstars, and you start thinking about it. When you get to the point of wanting to have dedicated, ready to go sounds in your studio, you really do get to a point where you're like, I've got a drum set mic'd up, and that 560 is just for the kick drum, and it's always in the chain, and it's ready to go. Yep. But before you get there, then you use it on everything for sure. Yeah,
kick and snare. It lives on during tracking drums, and then electric guitars, bass guitar, excellent, best EQ. And then I've got like stuff like these Neve clones from Sound Sculptor. So that's another 1073, but with the EQ section. They hit drums, vocals, guitars. They're pretty Neve EQs, like you were saying before, like the Soundtech EQ style EQ down here from Z&H, you can absolutely pin them, and they're very transparent. The Neves are probably the exact opposite of that. You really hear them. They're quite aggressive because of how they work, basically. They're inductor EQs, and they're not subtle at all. And then Cappy, these are an American company. These are the VP28s, which are like a API, preamp and fader design. Jeff, do you know Jeff Steiger at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, what a dude. He's amazing and done some really clever stuff. We can talk about these preamps in a second. And then these are the BT50 EQs, so the API 550 EQs from them. They're excellent as well. Drums, guitars, they can be on a bus. They can kind of do almost everything. And then I've got, like, as I said before, some other opto compressors. These are discontinued now, unfortunately. DIY RE don't make those optos. But they're based on like an LA4 opto compressor, the lesser known one. He redesigned that circuit in a really cool way. Yeah, and that's kind of like
the
a bunch of my DIY
LA2A
stuff.
is also an opto compressor, right?
Yeah. So the LA2, up top, I've got a LA2 clone from IGS. That's a bought piece of gear. That's unreal. Obviously, like I'm massive into 500 series stuff because the small form factor allows me to have more gear in a small home studio space. These are a different beast altogether. These have this high mid like in the high mids, they accentuate this really nice thing in the vocals that I love. So they actually live weirdly on my vocal bus, and that's all they do nowadays, and they're excellent for that. They just pull the vocal forward in this very cool way. And these are LA610 style tube EQs from Sound Sculptor. They're pretty cool. And that's kind of the majority of it. Oh, and then this is an SSL EQ and filter section over here from a newer company called
I'm
Link
not sure
Audio
if I can
Design.
see it right now. Can we see that? Or
Yeah.
It froze for me for a moment, but hopefully it's not frozen for everybody.
Okay, so
I don't know, but just check your zoom, and if it looks good,
there we
see
go.
it.
So over here at the end of this rack, we have an SSL EQ from an SSL preamp, from a company called Link Design. They're German based, and what they cleverly did was put in the filter section of the EQ as well, because they do the EQ as well in a separate rack unit. But what you can do, like part of the secret sound of the SSL isn't just the 4-band parametric EQ, it's also its filter section. The filters in an SSL one of the best high pass and low pass filters I've ever heard. You can really you can really dial them in more aggressively than other filters and really like dial in the shape of your tone and remove like lows or high frequency stuff without it. That's where the transparency of an SSL really lies, I feel, in those filters. They're very, very versatile, very cool preamp. And I've got a space there. For those of you that can't see this, there's a space next to it for the second one to be built, which I haven't got around to yet.
Are you ready to launch your career in the audio or entertainment business? SAE Institute Nashville, right here in the heart of Music Row, offers hands-on programs to prepare you for the industry, from studio production and live sound to audio for film and a whole lot more. You'll learn by doing, working with professional grade gear alongside experienced industry pros. If you're more into the business side of entertainment, SAE's Entertainment Business Program teaches essential basics like contracts and promotion to help you navigate the industry. With diploma, associate, or bachelor's degrees, there's a path for everyone. Plus, Career Services supports graduates as they take the next step. Want to see it for yourself? Immerse yourself in Nashville's exciting music scene and book a tour today at nashville.sae.edu or call 615-244-5848. Well, let's go back to you for a sec if you want, and let's talk about the process of building this stuff. So I'm sure there's lots for you to say about stuff like, and your light's still on behind you if you want it to be or not. Yeah, but the process of that and like having the tools that you need and stuff like that. Maybe give us an introduction into like what's the essential basic tools we want to have if we want to start thinking about building gear or just being able to get into soldering for the first time, that kind of stuff. And then maybe expand on that and talk about some of the ergonomics of really being able to do this. I mean, for example, one of the things I always felt like is fine to try and build it on your dining room table, but if you can't finish what you start right then, don't try and build it on your dining room table, you know? Do you have thoughts on all those topics?
Yeah, it does help to have like a bit of a dedicated like side sort of space on a bench somewhere, which is what I have. And it's actually, mine is just next to my dining table. And somehow my kids know to stay away from daddy's bench. I've got like a young 4-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son, and I haven't had any issues yet, like touch wood. So
touch wood, don't touch the soldering iron.
Yeah. I more worry about the expensive parts and them thinking that they can grab all the bits, and bits going missing, when I go back to finish a project.
What's this candy with the wires sticking out?
Yeah, totally. So to get started, soldering might seem like a really daunting thing. And as a teacher, when I taught for a long time, I actually taught soldering courses. And funnily enough, I've actually developed a soldering course that I'm just putting the final touches on. By the time this airs, it'll well and truly be out. But it's a beginner's guide to soldering, to getting into this whole thing. Because on the YouTube channel, I do get asked this a lot, or I have people go, I'd love to build my own, microphone or my own preamp, but I'm just a bit scared about diving into that. So it's an awesome question. Thanks, Lidge. So first up, the thing you want is a good soldering iron, really. Like, have a dedicated space. It just can be a small work table kind of thing. I use a camping table. Like, it's nothing fancy. That's where my setup is. And I film all this stuff while I'm building too. So it's more than enough to get by. But then the main thing you need is a good soldering iron. Where people make the biggest mistake is they find a soldering iron that their dad had, or was like some old like electrical dude kind of soldering iron. And that's not the kind of soldering iron you want for soldering fine electrical equipment. Usually the ones that people use for just electrical stuff around the house, they have this really fat metal tip to them, and they're very hard to use on little tiny PCBs. So what you need is a soldering iron with a really fine tip on it. And you can get these from like your Radio Shacks and all that, like all those sort of electronic stores. You can buy a soldering iron just with a fine tip on it. And then that will make everyone's life so much easier as a starting point.
So I think of like, I've got, I had to remember that brand name, but Weller, that's like a classic soldering iron name, as I recall. And I have like the classic just plug in. It's I think it's a 25 watt Weller, and it has the standard tip on it, which I would describe as looking like, it's not an extra wide, but it's like a highlighter. It's about the shape of a highlighter pen or something, as opposed to a fine point pen. And are you talking about wanting to have one of those like sort of fine point tips as well for some of the soldering?
Yeah, for almost all of it, I would suggest have a fine tip soldering iron for any soldering work that you're doing to do with audio. Those fatter, you described it perfectly, Lidge, that kind of highlighter. If it's as thick as a highlighter, it's too big for the stuff that we do.
I mean, that worked great, I think, for cabling, soldering cables in the studio, maybe. But the PCB stuff is much more precise. Is that it? Yeah,
even the little cups that are on an XLR, when you solder the pins for an XLR cable, they're quite small too, and like a fine tip helps get in there a bit easier. So it does help to have the finer tip. The other type of thing that you want to make sure you have as well with your soldering iron is a thermostat control. So those soldering irons that just plug into the wall directly, they don't have a thermostat control on them.
Right, it's one temp.
Yeah, that's right. Just all on, and often sometimes either too hot, and that's how you can burn your circuit board. So you want an iron that has a temperature control on it, because there's a set point where solder melts, but you also are not going to burn your circuit boards or any of the stuff that you're working on. So
and then
a good soldering iron
how do you
is key.
find out what the desired temperature is in any situation?
So
is it something you're adjusting like the damn shower temperature where you're just turning the cold up, turning the cold down, turning the cold down?
I've literally, it's like a set and forget thing. I'm not sure with Fahrenheit because that's a weird conversion for me because I'm from Australia, but it's it's around 340 to 350 degrees Celsius is the desired temperature for leaded solder. And so on that, like, People get a bit funny sometimes about using lead, right? Like, because lead is a problem, like when it's in your water or you ingest it. But for soldering, leaded solder is the best solder. You can use lead-free solder, but you need a special soldering iron for that, for it to work properly.
Okay.
That can be, like, basically you need an iron that can go hotter, because lead-free solder melts at a higher temperature, so it's harder to work with. So I don't recommend any beginners use lead-free solder. It can be really, really hard to use. As I said, like I've taught this stuff for years as a teacher, and we used lead-free solder for a little while, and it was a nightmare. It ruined all our soldering irons.
Soldering is already hard enough to do and to do well.
Yeah.
So like throwing in, to the mix something that is even harder.
Yeah.
Just means you're even more prone to having a cold soldering joint and stuff like that.
Oh, totally. So, leaded solder works the best always. So, and the thing is, if anyone's worried about that, what you get is an extraction fan. So it sucks the fumes away, and you just want to be like near a window or an open space when you solder, so you're not breathing in fumes or anything like that. And then you wash your hands.
Which is too bad, because when you first start doing it, you're kind of like, oh, the fumes are kind of fun and cool, and like it's smoking up by your face, and you're peering down into it.
Totally. And people get funny about the fumes that you see when you solder, and the fumes that you actually initially see are not lead. They're actually the flux. That's the flux evaporating in your face. So there's like a flux when you solder in the core of the solder. There's this flux to help it melt to the PCB or whatever you're joining. And so that smoke actually isn't the lead smoke. So people freak out about that too. And it's not actually the thing to be concerned with as much. You don't want to be breathing in any fumes though, really, right? If you can avoid it.
But that does bring up a point. So when you talk about an extraction fan, one of the lessons I remember learning is like when you melt the solder on something, and usually I was doing two pieces of wire. I was wiring an XLR jack onto a XLR cable or that sort of thing. So less PCB, but you melt it and you get the thing, and then you're like, you feel like, oh my God, I'm concentrating. I'm like tensing to try and hold all this stuff together, and I want this thing to dry, so I let go. Last thing you want to do is let go of the wire, and then it just falls off because it hadn't finished cooling. So then you try blowing on it, and you quickly learn, don't blow on the solder joint, right? Yeah. Because it actually doesn't let it, you want it to cool and be like a nice shiny silver when it cools.
Yeah, absolutely. The pro tips are just when you do it, you always, whatever you're joining, right? So say if you're doing cables, you actually tin your leads first. So you put a bit of solder, I'll take it back a step. Before you make any moves when you first solder, the first thing you always do is clean the tip of your soldering iron.
Yes.
Wipe it clean, and then you add a nice bit of solder to the tip of your iron. And the reason why you do that is because then when you start to do anything, there's already some fresh hot solder there to help it all melt. So before you do anything, you always make sure you clean the tip, then you add fresh solder, then you go to do the thing that you're going to do, joining or tinning something. And if you get into that practice, it just becomes this really quick thing, and you can work really fast and easy.
Yeah.
And then it becomes way less hard to do as a task once you understand that. And then you literally you just got to get in your head that I put solder on the iron, I do the thing, then I wipe it clean and put it back, put the iron back in. And it's that kind of process. So whenever you're trying to join something, say you've got a component in a PCB, same thing, wipe your iron clean, put some solder on there, then join the component. And then with cables, they're trickier, as I said, because first up, before you do any cable stuff, you want to have some solder on the cable itself, the copper wiring. So you tin that. And then say you're doing an XLR cable, on the rear of the pin where there's those little cups, you put solder in there. And then when it comes to join the cable, there's solder in the cup, there's solder on the wire, and then you just get your iron with a dab of fresh solder on it, and you just hold it down, and it joins, it melts it all together. Right. And it makes this easy process, and it just becomes actually an easy thing to do once you get the hang of it. And like mentioning cables, learning to solder a cable is like probably one of the most useful things you could ever learn. Like I've made so many cables in this studio, especially once you get more gear, or even just when microphone cables break, which they do, you can repair them really quick and easy and then save some money on that alone.
And once you start learning how gear works inside, you can actually start troubleshooting a little bit of your gear depending on what it is, because sometimes, something doesn't work and then you go look at it and you can just see. It's like you can see a capacitor that is blown up and it just needs to be replaced or whatever.
Totally. And on top of that, like it's also a job in the industry too. Like it's a forgotten job, being a service tech. There's jobs in that if you want to be in the audio industry too. Yeah.
What are other tools that you need? Just a soldering iron? I mean, you talked about cleaning it. How do you clean a soldering iron?
Cool. So you clean it with solder.
But I mean,
yep.
Don't you like we would do the sponge and we'd wet the sponge and you'd wipe it on the sponge, but then sometimes there's like, stuff that looks like a Brillo pad you can wipe it into or something too.
Yeah, either or. Sometimes they have those, the steel wool Brillo pad kind of thing, or just a sponge is fine. Just any wet kind of sponge will do the job. And it's just to wipe off that solder off the tip. But when you want to clean, say your tip starts to go a bit colored as it's sitting in its like holder, they start to burn a bit and you can see the tip darkening. To freshen up the tip, you literally just add solder, and that flux that we mentioned earlier, the flux helps clean the tip of your iron. So you just add solder to it and then wipe it clean again, and then it's ready to go. So if you've got like stuff on your soldering iron, you need to clean it. Yeah, and that's kind of how you do it.
What about next level tools? So, you obviously could probably need a voltmeter, right?
Yeah, a multimeter, a simple one, like a really cheap one, can come in handy. When you're building like the preamps and stuff I showed before, a multimeter is vital because you've got to do some calibration and testing later on. Right. But when you're just doing cables, just to check continuity, you can use that. Like you set it to ohms and you test that one end is getting resistance and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So a multimeter is definitely helpful. One tool that's really helpful I found is a tool called a helping hand, which I always find funny that it's called a helping hand. I don't know, it just sounds funny to me. And it's just like a set of claws and stuff that you can attach, like you can put your PCBs in or your connectors in. And then that can help to hold everything while you're soldering, because you mentioned before, like cables going everywhere. And trying
that's
to
that's
make
the
a
most
joint.
nightmare part of it is like trying to hold. You feel like you need four hands. You need to be an octopus to hold all these things.
Well, that's why they call it the helping hand.
Yeah, you need like something to hold the cable. You need something to hold the connector that you're trying to solder together. Then you need a hand to hold the soldering iron. Then you need another hand to hold the solder to like feed and, tin the tip of the soldering iron as you're working. And then you need another hand to like, when you're my age, you need another hand to like, wiggle the giant magnifying glass and get the lighting just right so you can see what the hell you're doing.
So the helping hands actually come with all of those things, like a magnifying glass with a light, and then like the claws to hold the things while you're doing your soldering and stuff like that. So they can be super useful. They're probably the thing I get asked about the most. People go, what is that thing? Like when they see my soldering videos, they're like, where did you get that from? And you can just get all this stuff from electronics stores. It's really affordable. None of this stuff's expensive.
Are there good ones and bad ones, the helping hands? Because I feel like I've had the bad one mostly.
Yeah, there are cheaper ones that can get a bit like janky when you're trying to adjust them. I've still got my first ever cheap one that still does the job. For holding PCBs, the claws can actually damage the PCB because they can scratch it on those helping hands. So I taped up mine originally so it wouldn't damage my PCBs. But you can actually get a PCB holder that kind of looks like a little bit like a vise, and you put the PCB in and then it holds the PCB on the edges safely. That's another way. The really cost-effective way though, and this is in place of any kind of helping hand tool to hold everything together, is just putty. We call it blue tacky. You know what I'm talking about? Like just sticky putty that you use to like
posters on the walls.
Posters on the walls. Yeah. So that sort of stuff.
So how do you do it?
You just get a bunch of it, like balls of it, and then you can put your connectors in the putty. So like an XLR connector, being cylindrical, is going to roll all over your table. So you just sit the connector in the putty and it'll sit there
so
still.
The connector is just, the putty's just sitting on your tabletop.
Yeah,
Do you
I have
find
a
that
bunch
it's smart to get like a little work surface instead of just being right on the tabletop though? Like how do you keep from damaging or melting the wrong things or whatever,
Yeah, a cutting board, like those green kind of cutting boards, can be helpful. You can actually get really cheap rubber component sorting mats. That's what I've got nowadays. You can get them on all kinds of cheap stores like Temu and Amazon.
We have Amazon
all that sort of
here,
stuff.
yeah.
Amazon, yeah.
You don't need to play guitar to sound like a pro. Session guitarist from Native Instruments delivers hundreds of lifelike guitar performances, both electric and acoustic, right inside Contact. Whether you're laying down rockin' electric riffs or warm acoustic beds, you'll get 154 electric guitar patterns and over 250 acoustic guitar grooves for strumming and fingerpicking, all grouped into song-ready presets. Dial in recording quality tone with built-in amps, cabinets, mic modeling, and effects. You can drag and drop MIDI into your tracks effortlessly, then tweak tempo, tuning, and feel to fit your song. And with new session packs on the way, you'll never run out of inspiration. Visit nativeinstruments.com, use the code ROCK10 for 10% off, and bring full guitar performances to your next track. No more blisters on your fingers.
And so you can get like a component sorting mat. They're just rubber. And then you can sort out all your components while you're doing a project. They're super handy.
Oh, I see. So is it like, it's like a workspace, but then there's dishes around the perimeter where you can put things?
Yeah, and
handy.
My one was only like a few dollars. My partner, she found it for me, and she was like, I think I got it for a birthday present last year.
That's great.
Yeah, and I was like, this is like the best birthday present ever because I could actually sort out all my components in the little cups and trays, and some of them are magnetized to hold different things, so it's sick. Like,
yeah, cool.
That's how big an audio nerd I am. I'm like, a sorting mat.
Thanks, honey. I headed to the bench. Well, that's cool. And then let's see, what about a de-soldering iron? Is that something you got into, or a solder sucker?
Yeah. So you have your basic solder sucker, which is like a little pump, like a hand pump thing that you'll push down, and then you have to put your iron onto something, and then you push a button and it sucks up the solder. And that's a simple, really cheap de-soldering thing. And that they're okay for things like cable, when you're doing cables, like XLR cables, instrument cables. When you get to doing PCBs, it's a little bit more complicated to desolder something. And I learned this the hard way by making mistakes on PCB projects and then trying to desolder them. There's the traditional hand pump solder sucker thing that I was talking about. There's also a thing called desoldering wick or desoldering braid. That stuff is a nightmare. I would say never use that. I've burnt a circuit board once before by doing that. Like, I've made mistakes, plenty of mistakes doing this stuff. So you can get desoldering pumps. They're a little bit more money. They're about $100 or so. But if you're doing as much stuff that like I'm doing, where I'm building stuff all the time, that has become invaluable. And if you're doing modding or repairs for anyone else, a desoldering station or a desoldering pump is definitely the way to go. And all it is a soldering iron kind of tip with a hole in it. So it's a gun. It looks like a gun, and it connects to an air pump. And the tip gets hot like your soldering iron, and you set the temperature like a soldering iron. But it's got a hole where it could suck air, and it just melts the solder and then sucks it all back as you hold the trigger, and it pumps it back. And it's like, it makes desoldering stuff really quick and easy. And so
let's explain like what was like rockstars were like scratching their like, wait, I thought we were learning how to solder. What are we talking about desoldering? So there's just obvious times where you have to remove the solder from something. You need to, get it out of there, clean it out, start over, or on a PCB board, how else are you going to get an old broken component out of there and clean out the little holes so that you can now add a new one in and add new solder? Exactly.
And the hardest part is when you remove a component from a board you'll end up with a bit of solder on those component holes, and then you need to clear that out. And the de-soldering pump will help so much more with that. There are other ways where you can heat it and push a component through and just melt it through and stuff like that and do it a bit of a dodgier way. But yeah, look, that is the easiest way to do it, is with a de-soldering pump. But like, that's all to say, like, if you start your first soldering projects, you should probably start on something like a cable, and then work your way up into something like you did, Lidge, like with the guitar pedal, or a DI box, or a simple microphone, like I did, because microphones don't have too many components in them. And then, yeah, I wouldn't recommend anyone go and build a compressor or a preamp as their first project, for sure.
Right, it's a little involved. It's a little more involved.
Yeah, you want to step up slowly before doing the bigger projects.
Well, okay, but let's keep going from there. So you said the, the pedal if you want, or a DI box. And then what's next what's the next project to try out, a mic preamp? Is it sort of like, is it almost the logic of going down the signal chain?
Yeah.
But an EQ could be hard, right? EQ could be tricky.
Yeah. They're all quite, once you get to the level of a preamp or a EQ or a compressor, we're talking like a pretty big circuit board with like hundreds, if not up to 1,000 components, depending on the size of the circuit. And trickier components like transformers and all these other kind of things that you've got to add to the board, the motherboards of those PCBs. And yeah, you're getting a lot more complex, and you'll need more tools as well, because you're going to need things like certain wire strippers. One of the tricks I've got is you have like strippers for stripping cable, like auto strippers where you just put the cable in and click it, and then it strips the outer shell of the cabling and stuff. But sometimes those on something like a transformer could really damage the transformer wires because they pull on them to do that. So like you have like what I call, like they're front-facing cable strippers, so you can get in and just pinch the little tip off the end of it. So they pinch this way instead of kind of that way. It's hard to describe. So they'll grab it from the front and strip the cable back. So
like
the front
your
facing,
teeth, like if you're
if you're going to use your teeth, which you should never do.
You're ever eaten not an avocado, I can't think of the artichoke, when you when you do an artichoke leaf and you dip it in the butter. That's what my mom used to do after their steamed artichoke leaves, and then you just put it in your teeth and you scrape it and pull it out. I think that's what for the rock stars listening. That's the pulling motion you're talking about. But I mean, that's it's good to know about the tool sets. It's good to hear about these things, especially first time for people hearing it, and also something as simple as strippers. I mean, I remember learning I tried different ways of stripping wires. I learned from one of my mentors. He just had these little clipper things, and he just sort of clip gently and then just pull it off. And that was a way to do, to pull the sleeve off of the end of the wire on like a Mogami cable for XLR. But then you also learn that you can also go real simple. So just a straight razor blade is a very, very useful tool when you're working on all this stuff. And you can absolutely just put the razor blade on there and gently just go around stuff and cut it and pull it off. And I got into Ethernet cables not long ago too, and I got all excited because I got all these Ethernet tools that help do that.
Yep. Man, I don't even want to think about Ethernet. That's wild. But yeah, look, there's a bunch of tools, and it's one of those things where if you want to do it as a hobbyist and learn about all this stuff, the tools aren't too expensive to begin with, and then you can grow those set of tools as you go and expand what you have. And if you love it the way I fell in love with it, and it is an addictive thing, I think. When you it's a bit like getting a tattoo or something, you build your first thing and it works, and then you're like, what am I going to do next? Yeah, and that's and I should also say this, preface it all with this, the rack that I was showing you over here, I've got more gear on this side as well. This has been a long process. I didn't just get all this gear in one day. It's many, many years of building pieces and building my dream kind of studio, right? Once I built a couple of mics and a preamp and stuff, I was like, oh man, I could build my own analog studio, and that was kind of the dream. I wanted
Have you been sketching out, doodling console designs on napkins yet?
I haven't gotten that far. I've got a console in front of me. I use a pretty affordable console from a company called Allen and Heath, and it's got motorized faders, and I mainly use it in tracking just to dial in really quick headphone mixes. And it's good for monitoring and good for a couple of other things, like, as I mentioned, like motorized faders. But like my idea was always to have an analog setup, particularly for recording, and then some of the mixing stuff as well. So it's become a very big part of my process. Did you end up
getting any analog tape, or ever get curious about doing analog?
Oh, man, I don't have the space here. I would love to definitely try that at some point. Tape was, when I came in as a engineer, tape was being completely phased out. So when I first left high school and studied audio, we were at the end of tape days, and Pro Tools was well and truly the way things were being done. I'm talking like 2003, 2004. And then when I went to uni again to do studio focused degree, we had the option to do tape, and unfortunately you could do a whole EP. You had to do, we had an assessment to record a band, and you had the option to use tape for the tracking and mixing part of that. But unfortunately, they didn't allocate any of us enough studio time to really do it if you made a mistake. And so it became a thing of, I'd love to do this, but if I make a mistake, my whole assessment's toast, and then I'm never going to get my degree. So it was kind of like an unfortunate thing. And I wanted so bad. I've done recording and I've done mixing to tape, like 2-track tape and stuff like that before. And it is nice.
It's fun. It's fun. It's a lot of fun to just record it on tape, rewind it, press play, and hear it back.
Yeah.
It's a good feeling. I miss my tape machines, but I also don't miss them, because I just love the new studio setup.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot. Yeah.
Well, so let's see. So what do I want to ask you about next? I mean, the cool thing about learning how to build your own gear is it's a very old school approach. I mean, when you think about places like Motown and stuff like that, they were probably building their own stuff. Abbey Road, they were building their own gear, all of them.
Yeah.
And how cool it is when you know how to do that. You oh, you know what? We need a talk back in the studio, and then you just invent it and build it. So
totally.
What about that for you? Now you've learned how to do a lot of stuff from the DIY kits. Has it started wheels turning in your own head, own mind about design ideas and coming up with your own circuits and, hybrid stuff you'd like to build that's totally custom?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny you mentioned that. I actually just had an intern start here, and we were talking about some of the ideas I have, and I've wanted to learn how to do 3D printing for a long time, but getting the time to learn how to 3D print stuff and learn CAD, I don't have the time for that right now, unfortunately. I wish I did. And he's like, I have a 3D printer, I know CAD. And I'm like, what? Anyway, so the beauties of having another brain in the room. Yeah. And so we're brainstorming.
What would you 3D print though? I mean, stuff for the studio or some other thing?
It's a secret, Lidge. It's a secret. No, there's one project we have that I can't mention. But it is, I can say it's a microphone of some type that we're going to work on. And 3D printing will be part of the way to scale it at a more affordable price. But the first big thing that I did that was just a really easy project that other people have done before is something like a sub kick. And everyone should know what the sub kick is. It's a speaker that you put on your kick drum. I actually did this project with my daughter about a year ago. Do you want me to grab it? I can pull it up.
Yeah. No, I'll keep clarifying. So it's a speaker that you use as a microphone on your kick drum. You use the speaker in reverse, and it becomes a microphone. And as you can imagine, you can go grab it. I'll just keep talking.
Yeah.
And as you can imagine, rock stars, the speaker. I mean, that it's going to sound not hi-fi like a microphone does, but more like the low tonal quality of a speaker moving when the kick drum hits. And so you get this really great pillowy, deep, low sound,
Pillowy is an exact, that's how I would describe it as well. It's all the really, really, really low sub stuff at around 100 to 50 hertz and lower that a microphone starts to struggle with. Typically, like there are certain microphones that are great for this on the outside of a kick drum, like a U47, things like that. But this is my DIY version of a sub kick, and my daughter and I named it the Bucket Sub 4000.
That's great. I love it. Oh, because it's a bucket. That's great.
Yeah, it's a bucket. Yeah. So being the DIY recording studio, I wanted to build one of these and fashion it in a way that was like obviously super cheap, obviously super DIY for anyone that wanted to do one. So I've got a video on my channel of how I put this together. It's pretty rudimentary.
Why don't you describe it for the audio listeners, what we're looking at?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got I did a bit of research into this on what the right speaker size was, and the correct speaker size for a sub kick is 6 inches or 6.5 inch woofer. So you've got a 6-inch woofer. It can be any speaker. Once again, you can get this kind of stuff from like your Radio Shacks or like local electronic kind of stores or something like that sell speaker, like just hi-fi speakers.
And why is 6.5 a good number?
Good question, Lidge. So what, like if we put on our like science hat and our like DIY hat, the bigger the speaker gets, what do you think it's going to pick up more of?
You think it's going to pick up more low end.
Yeah, exactly, right? So the bigger the diaphragm, the more low frequencies it can physically and more naturally capture, right? So that's why we have large diaphragm versus small diaphragm condensers and things like that. Now, it's not totally true that a large diaphragm condenser has more low frequencies. They just pick them up in a different way. I think that like we've got to be careful of that, kind of talking about that. But I did a bunch of research into the correct or the most optimal speaker size. And once you start getting into 8 or 10 inch size sub kicks, not only do they focus more, maybe a little bit too much on the really low frequencies, but they also become like, it becomes into practical stuff where if you've got a 10 inch speaker on a 20 inch kick drum, it's starting to get in the way of everything. So it becomes super impractical. And even in this, like this is a 6-inch one, it takes up a fair bit of space on a standard size kick drum. So 6 seems to be the optimal size if you want to then have a kick in mic and then maybe a kick out mic and then a sub kick. So this particular speaker, now you can try out different speakers. They'll have different frequency responses. We can talk about that in a second. I've literally just mounted it in an old, not an old bucket, but like a cheap couple of dollar bucket from a hardware store.
A gorgeous, beautiful bucket, Rockstar.
Yeah. And then all it needs is an XLR connector mounted in. So I've got a male XLR output connector, and you literally just wire 2 wires from a wire from each terminal of the speaker to the pin number 2 and 3 of the XLR, and there you go. Like that's your sub kick. And the sub kick microphone idea is excellent. Like it just does something with the low frequencies that any other kick mic doesn't do. I think you just don't get that same woofy, subby low end. And like typically I'm using that if I'm mixing a track with that sub kick in there, you're only putting it in a little bit. Like it's just that little bit of extra low end to the kick sound that you're chasing.
Are you recording your own music or other people's music in your studio, but you're having trouble figuring out how to get your mixes to sound great? Do they sound weak and distant or lack punch and clarity? Well, I've got a gift for you to help you take your mixes from sounding like basement demos to sounding a lot more like professional mixes. And it's my free course called Mix Master Bundle. This course will show you how to get pro-sounding mixes from your home studio with free and stock plugins in Pro Tools. And the best part is, these mixing techniques will work for you in any DAW, whether you're in Logic, Cubase, PreSonus, Studio One, Reaper, or anything you can think of. Are you ready to make your best record ever? Then go to mixmasterbundle.com to get started for free now, and you can find the clickable link in the show notes of this episode. Do you know Dr. Alien Smith?
No.
It's another Australian who makes all these funky, cool mics. You should check his stuff out too.
Dr. Alien Smith.
Yeah, he's got a website, just called draliensmith.com. But they make a bunch of fun mics that would get you excited too.
Cool. I'll definitely check that out. I just chucked it in Google.
All right, so you've got the kick one.
Yep.
More to say on that, or was that the first of a few things?
I think that's if you're like wanting to go, like if you've done cables, maybe you've made a couple of XLR cables. That's definitely one of the next ones you should do because it's super useful if you're recording drums, especially. That's one you should definitely be doing. And I've got some ideas. So you're going back to your question, Lidge, where you're saying like, do I have any projects in mind? Without giving too much away, there is more that can be done with that idea of a sub kick, and that's what I'm working on for. That's one of my first big projects. Yeah.
Well, we look forward to hearing the results, seeing and hearing the results when you're ready, man. Maybe I'll be visiting you at your booth at NAMM one day.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be so cool.
So then, what about how about a talk box for the guitar? You ever thought about one of those? You know, like the
like the kind of Stevie
Wonder through a tube.
Yeah, no, I haven't thought about doing that one. The idea of sending voltages into your mouth freaks me out a bit.
Nah, you're just sending. The speaker's like way far away from you.
Yeah. That is a cool one.
I built one when I was in college when I was doing all this stuff, and I didn't have anything else to work with, so I just took like an old car speaker and a tin can, like a tin coffee can, and like put the speaker on there, and then I got a plastic funnel, that you would use for like pouring oil into your car. And I just put that on the top. It looked like the Tin Man and just taped it all together, just like duct taped the shit out of it and just put a tube on it. And it totally worked for a while. And I plugged it right into my, Music Man 112 guitar amp or something and probably just fried that thing in 2 seconds. But I got to use it for a few overdubs, I think. But I think the proper way to build them is with an actual horn driver, like a high frequency horn driver.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's the way they typically do those, because the tube will pair right up with the driver horn, or what would you call it? The neck or something, like the mouth of the driver.
Yeah. That's cool. I'll definitely have. That's one I haven't thought about, but I've actually more recently been getting people going, have you thought about building this? Like one was, the stomp boxes that like a lot of acoustic artists use, where they'll have like a piezo pickup in like a plank of wood or a hockey park. There's a bunch of different versions of this where they like stomp their foot and they get that kick drum sound.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah. I've had artists at Bonnaroo bring those in.
Yeah.
It's just got an XLR jack on it or something like that.
Yeah. Same thing again. It's a very simple thing to do because usually it's just like a piezo microphone and then just some simple wires. It's just in a box, like that's a simple one to do that you can experiment with.
That reminds me, I used to build piezo or piezo pickups for my banjo and my fiddle back in the day.
Yeah, that's cool.
And they sounded awful because you do have to do they can sound really good, but that's a world where the physical nature of what you build has a big impact on the sound.
Totally.
As opposed to just the electronic,
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's that's true for like a lot of microphones, like going back to what we were talking about with like dynamic microphones and stuff. Like everyone sort of, when we're talking about like the SM58 and SM57 thing, like where people have mistaken that they're the same thing, everything that comes into building a microphone has an effect. So like the interesting thing about that bucket sub, for instance, is how much effect does the bucket have? You know what I mean? Because you can build that without the bucket, right? And people ask me why even bother putting it in a bucket? Because some people have done that with just the speaker not mounted to anything. You can do it that way where it's just an open speaker. But like with a guitar cabinet, right? Like the frequency response of a speaker in a guitar cabinet changes whether it's open back or closed back or in a cabinet at all. Like it won't work. Like you won't.
Same with the microphone.
Totally, and it's the same with the microphone.
Yeah, and so Rockstar's the closest analogy to the speaker's microphone would be something like an SM57.
Yeah.
Because when you take that thing apart and you look at it, it's literally the diaphragm is like a teeny tiny speaker. And if you plug your shit in the wrong way, plug your mic into into the headphone jack instead of the mic input on that Snake, you might just discover how much it can sound like a little speaker.
Yep, I've done that once before.
Yeah, and then also this is a fun one to try for anybody who has never tried it. A headphone can also double as a microphone. So don't use your good headphones that you just saved up your money for, but if you have a cheap one laying around, you can actually plug that headphone jack into some sort of mic input if you have like a little mini jack input for a microphone on anything, and discover that that doubles as a microphone.
Totally, yeah. And like that's getting into that whole thing we're talking about again, where if you play around with these kind of things, you're just giving yourself other colors to paint with, right? Like it's such a cool thing. Like all of this stuff, like it's just different ideas, different ways to do this creative thing. And like you can really pull together your own sound in a really cool way. Like by choosing the gear that I've got, like the professional level gear and then other pieces of DIY gear, you really start to develop your own sound and your own space and your own signature. You said, like, nailed it before, like the sonic signature, I love that idea. Yeah, it's very cool. Well,
very cool, man. Well, we've been going for a good long stretch, and I really love this stuff. And so we may have to just have you back, and we'll keep diving in deeper. And we'll want to know when your soldering course comes out, so that you can we can share that and make sure everybody gets to check that out if they want to learn about soldering. Or maybe we'll have that in time for when this comes out. And
it'll be
in
out,
which case Rockstars is going to be in the links below. We didn't even get to talk about your music too, so we'll have to do that in the next time around. But Rockstars, we also have a playlist of the music that Mitch is recording at his studio, and it sounds great. So you're going to want to go check that out. I mean, if you're curious about how these things sound, my guess is we're hearing a lot of the sound of your stuff and your way of working on that, and it sounds really good. So let me ask you a question that I love to ask all our guests on the show. This is our closing question. You know it well. It's hypothetical, and we're going to take the Wayback Studio machine, and you get to go back in time, back to a time before you could buy audio gear in the store or on Amazon, and you had to build it yourself if you weren't. No, probably not that far back. But back when Mitch was younger, you go back and find yourself, and you say, listen, Mitch, here's a bit of advice for you. Enjoy the hair while you got it. That's the first bit of advice. Second bit of advice is, here's the single most important thing you need to know to be a rock star of the studio yourself one day. What advice do you feel like giving yourself if you could?
Oh, man. Just one?
Just go for it, man. Just ready, set, go.
Yeah. Number one, keep going, I think. I went through stages of doing other jobs whilst trying to build my career in music, and have done lots of different things over the years. And my number one bit of advice to anyone wanting to do this, and myself, my younger self, would be to keep going and don't stop. Just keep doing music, keep doing the music thing. And just the other thing would be don't be scared to take on advice from reliable mentors. I'm lucky enough when I moved up here to Newcastle to find some friends who we've kind of got like a hive mind group kind of thing now, but we're also mentors to each other. We teach each other stuff all the time. We show each other different approaches to things. And that has been the thing that has accelerated my ability as an engineer faster than anything before. So like looking for mentors and people that can help you out in this thing that we all do. Because no one can do this on their own. No one can learn audio and mixing and recording on their own, no matter how much study you do. No matter, like, listening to resources like this is also an amazing thing, but there's something to be said for having like a mentorship and either go and doing an internship somewhere or having friends that are that little bit better than you, or doing something that you want to learn and taking that on and taking on that advice. I think that's the biggest thing that anyone can do in this industry is go and intern somewhere, work under someone, offer your skills. If you are going to intern somewhere, this is the biggest thing. What can you offer as an intern to that studio space? Like, there's so many cool things that, like, Lid, you take on interns, I'm taking on interns now. There are so many jobs that we have to do as engineers, and there are spots for interns that can come in and help us out with what we all do, I'm sure. And if you can offer something like, can you solder, or can you operate a video camera, or can you take good photos, or what can you do for that studio to help them do their job better, and get yourself into that space, and get yourself in the room. Definitely try and find ways to get yourself in the room and just be there and stay there and just keep going. Would be my biggest advice. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I mean, to reiterate something that I think has been the theme of this whole thing too, is listen to the mentorship and learn, but remember to respect your own voice. Keep the faith that whatever the hell you think is good, it is good, and stick with it. Your taste will change over time, but your contribution to the world is valuable, and you got to grow it, and you got to believe in yourself through this whole process, and be careful that you don't get sucked into the whirlpool of just trying to do what you think everybody else is doing, and during your career too.
Totally.
So that's the thing that I'm still at 57, I'm still trying to find my voice, and the more I do, the more fun I have. But Mitch, It's been great hanging with you, dude. I really appreciate it. It was really awesome to see you at NAMM in LA, and what a blast that was. That is such a great time to just get together and reconnect with everybody. So hopefully I'll see you at another one. I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be in a new location and all that kind of stuff, I think. Or no, I guess it's AES that will be. Okay. I think AES in the fall. That's the one that's new. So yeah, I'll be there. As long as they got cheap hotels, I'll be there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be there again next year. I've got stuff I'm lining up, so that'll be cool.
It's just fun to socialize. I'm thinking about whether I want to go and just actually just, volunteer at somebody's booth instead of always having to, go bounce around all the time. But the truth is, even when I bounce around, I run out of time the whole time. Every time I'm out of time.
Yep.
It's not enough time for me to go do all the little video ideas I wanted to do and all that.
Totally. You had some amazing content though, for sure.
Yeah. Well, thanks, man. So do you. Well, Rockstars, let the Rockstars know, where can they go find out more about you if they want to do the soldering course, watch your channel, learn more about the DIY projects. Where should they go follow you and connect?
Cool. If you want to purchase my soldering course, it's on my website, the DIYrecordingstudio.com. It's available there as of today. So by the time this airs, it'll be definitely out. If you want to follow along on any of the other build projects that I do, you can go to my YouTube channel, which is also called the DIY Recording Studio. So I feature all the different things I build as I go on there as well. And lots of people have learned how to solder just from that alone, which is pretty cool. Yeah. And then, you can add me on Instagram, once again, DIY Recording Studio, and all my stuff's out there on those main channels, yeah.
That's great, man. Well, thank you for hanging with us, Rockstars. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please, drop us a like and subscribe to Recording Studio Rockstars so you get more of these fun interviews with awesome folks like Mitch. And if you have any thoughts or questions about any of this stuff we talked about, drop a comment in, leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought. Let us know how we did. If we did good, if you didn't like what we said, I want to hear it all. We're here to connect with you. So it's it feels really great to get comments in there too. And it helps the channel. It's a great way to actually help my channel. Make sure to go over and follow Mitch at DIY Recording Studio. He's got tons of great video content over there. It's really, really excellent. And dude, I will see you around the studio.
Awesome. Thanks, Neil. We'll cut that.
No, we'll leave it, man. It's great. That's a good ending.
Thanks, Lidge.
No worries, dude. Good to see you, Mitch.
See you, man.
Peace out, man. Thanks so much for listening to Recording Studio Rockstars. If you enjoyed the show and want to help make it better, then please share this episode with your friends on social media and leave a rating and review on iTunes to help the podcast reach more rock stars like yourself. You can click directly over to iTunes or go to rsrockstars.com/review for an easy explanation. And remember to hit the subscribe button to keep up with weekly episodes. And if you're ready to make your best record ever now, then head over to Recording Studio Rockstars Academy, where you can start with my free course at mixmasterbundle.com. Thanks so much for listening, and thanks for being a rock star. I'm Lij Shaw, and this is Recording Studio Rockstars. Now, go make great music. Recording Studio Rockstars would like to give a big thank you to our awesome sponsors who help make this episode possible: iZotope, Native Instruments, Atom Audio, and SAE Institute. And remember to take advantage of our special coupon codes at iZotope.com and nativeinstruments.com. Use the coupon code ROCK10 for 10% off any plugin purchase. And don't forget, you can start mixing right now with my free course at mixmasterbundle.com. If you enjoyed Recording Studio Rockstars, please check out our sponsors using the links in the show notes. These are all things I highly recommend for your studio. They're going to help you make your best record ever. Also, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel because it's a great way for you to help support this show. I'd also like to thank our fantastic team here at Recording Studio Rockstars, Vlad Weselchenko and Liz Hulitskaya. Thanks so much for watching and listening, Rockstars. We'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.